Hello, if you're watching this then you're on channel Moomba Trooper, but well, the person behind the channel is me, Kirsty, which you'll only really see my face, I guess sometimes you don't really get to see me a lot. The reason why I'm kind of doing this video is more because I want to, it's gonna be kind of a log that I'm doing, because I'm kind of changing a little bit what I'm up to nowadays. So far all I've kind of been doing for this channel is just doing things that I enjoy, so I don't really tend to do blogs, but I thought that this would be quite good to do because it's gonna be focused on a project that I've been working on for quite a while that I'm kind of more focused on now, that I want to document as much as possible, just because I myself have not really seen a lot of videos like these, so I think that these kinds of videos could be quite helpful for me. So if this is helpful to anyone else out there who's in the same situation as I am, then maybe that would be good for them as well. So what am I talking about exactly? I might actually have wanted to have mentioned that previously. I am a rookie video game developer. I've made a few games before, but they've only kind of been very tiny projects and for university. I studied games computing in university, so they've only been kind of projects related to that, and I've not really made kind of exactly what I wanted to make, or at the very least I've not really gone in depth into making the things that I really wanted to make. I've had this idea for making this very specific video game for a very long time now, and I'm kind of getting serious on it now by this point. Up to this point it's just kind of been a lot of concept art and conceptualizing and just kind of having random ideas, but now I'm at a stage where I'm actually getting serious on making it now. So I'm just kind of gonna use this as a log to kind of show the progress I'm making, because it's very easy to kind of feel like you're not making a lot of progress, but that's because you haven't really documented exactly what you've been doing. And although I have documentations for the game itself, I haven't really documented on the kind of progress and the time it's taken for me to get there. I mean, again, a lot of it has been conceptual work that I've just kind of randomly popped out of my head and I've just drawn as a hobby for years and years. So I have a lot of kind of conceptual drawings and things and environments from just me doing random doodlings, but those weren't like, I wasn't drawing them with the mindset of, oh yes, this is a step in the progress. I was just kind of drawing those because I was like, oh, what if I had this idea? I feel like drawing today, I'm gonna draw. But now I'm like, no, this drawing I'm doing now is for the project, and it is a step into making this game a reality. The game that I'm making, I've kind of decided upon by taking the advice that I've seen a lot of people kind of parrot, in that when you want to make a game, a lot of people tell you, really, for starters, you should just make the game that you want to play, and that's the advice that I've kind of taken. This is a game that I'd love to play. It's a combination of things that I love from other video games and kind of my own ideas that I'd like to see realised. So the game, I'm not gonna be giving away the entire project because obviously I want it to be a surprise. If all goes according to plan and it actually sees the light of day as a fully functional thing that other people can play, I don't want to have blurted out the entire thing before that time comes. So although it may be a very long time before anybody else but me knows what it's like, I'm not going to be saying too much about it. But yeah, this is just kind of, it's a dream project for me. This is kind of my dream goal, is to be able to release a video game that I know that I made and came from my ideas, and that the idea of creating an entirely different world that other people can experience, that came from your own head and started out just as kind of just imagination in your head, that was put onto paper and eventually found its way into an actual thing that other people could see and experience. To me, that's just such an amazing thing, and it's one of the reasons why I love video games, because there's not, I mean, I guess it's the same kind of thing with films, and to an extent books, but with books you have more kind of the person reading it has more of their own interpretation on it. But with video games, the way it looks is and plays is kind of like somebody's mind put on as a physical thing that other people can experience. You know, of course there's room for interpretation as well, but the look of it came from someone's brain and is now a real thing that someone can look at. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling here, but to me I just think that that's an absolutely amazing thing. That's one of the things I love about video games. So that's why this is kind of my dream thing. It's just, you know, the idea that something come from my brain and become a real thing that other people can experience, I just think is amazing. So what is this mysterious and magical game? Well, I'm gonna kind of go through the process of what I've done so far, what I decided to do when going through the progress of starting the project and making it. So the first thing I decided to do to be able to have kind of a general idea as to what it is that I decided to make a mood board for the project. So I grabbed kind of a bunch of different games that I like and that I want to kind of, that maybe the kind of feel or some elements that I want to take from those games, and I put them in a mood board to say, this, that feel from this, or feel from that is the kind of things that I'm going for. So in terms of genre, I think I picked Final Fantasy IX as the kind of genre kind of game. Now it's not gonna be exactly like this, but a lot of things that are similar in Final Fantasy IX that I want in my game, in that it's gonna be a complete fantasy world where it doesn't really reflect our world at all. It's a world where there are different races, that are none of which, this is going to be a difference, is that there's not going to be any humans for races. They are all going to be just kind of made up creatures. I mean, there may be some mythological creatures in them, but I'm not even focusing on mythological creatures. I'm kind of just focusing on creatures that are based off animals but are just something of their own right. So it's going to be full of different races. It's going to be kind of a cross, there's going to be quite a cross between kind of very natural looking environments to kind of like castle-like environments like in Final Fantasy IX, and to more advanced technological areas. But all in all, it's going to stay more towards the nature, to more natural looking environments. It's not going to be sci-fi, you know, it's gonna stick to the realm of Final Fantasy. It's gonna stick to the realm of fantasy, to more traditional looking fantasies. And although there will be more technologically advanced areas, those will kind of be not as many, and there'll be kind of reasons for why those exist. And also another thing that's kind of similar to Final Fantasy, and I'm looking at 9 specifically just because that to me has more of a rounded feel to how I want my game to be like. So again, it's more traditional looking, and also the different races sort of thing. Not all Final Fantasies have multiple different races, so they may have 1 or 2. In Final Fantasy IX there's like many different races, and that's what I'm going for as well. So I'm going to have multiple different races. It's not just going to be like, you know, people and then a few others. It's going to be multiple. And again, none of them are going to be human. There are no humans. There are not going to be any humans in this game. Partially because I can't draw humans very well. But also partially because I quite like the idea of not playing human characters, because humans are very... I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it, that humans are very... Like, you play people in a lot of video games, which again, it makes sense, but in a thing that you can literally be anything. So if you can be anything, why would you be a person again, you know? I'm not trying to bash games where you play as people, obviously not, but you know, if you can be anything, why not be something that's not human and that walks in a completely different way and gets about the environment in a completely different way? And that's gonna be an element in the game, is that you know, the way you get about is gonna be different. because you're not a human, and so the way that person gets around environment is not going to be the same as some kind of animalistic creature that gets about. But I'm not going to say too much on that. The mechanics of the game is also going to be similar to this as well, in that it's going to be RPG. Now, part of the reason for that is also due to some limitations that I have, because this project at the moment is just me. I'm the only person working on it. It's just my project. Now, hopefully, if all goes according to plan, I will be getting more people on board. I mean, I'll have to. I can't do this entire thing on my own. I mean, if I really simplified it, I suppose I could, but I really don't want to do that. I don't want to gut the game because I'm that limited, and that could be a mistake, but we'll see. But the mechanics is partially due to limitation. I would like to have a more complicated battle system, especially, but it'd just make the project so much more complicated, and I really don't want to do that, because I feel like that's something that, if this is successful, could happen a lot later, and this is just far, far, far future things. I shouldn't really be thinking about that at the moment, but, you know, it's not something that needs to be overly complicated to begin with, even though I'm kind of making it complicated anyway, but not that complicated at the moment. So I'm going for RPG mechanics because, first of all, I love playing RPGs. There's gonna be some twists to it. It's not gonna be just typical JRPG. There's gonna be some other elements to it. The typical things you think of RPGs, like leveling up and, you know, collecting equipment and learning, you know, attacks and things, that's all gonna be part of it. There's gonna be some more things to kind of make it a bit different. But it's just, I'm choosing that because with RPGs like that, there's a very rigid system to follow that makes it a bit more easier to make, because, you know, RPGs have been done a lot, so there's a very clear structure to follow. And again, even though they've been done a lot, I still really enjoy them. I don't get bored of RPGs, and they're still really popular, especially JRPGs. They're still, you know, they haven't really fallen out of favour. So I'm gonna be going for that. It makes it a bit more simpler, and also I still think it'll be enjoyable. Another kind of game that I chose to kind of be, it's not really an inspiration. I guess it's technically, yeah, actually no, it's a little bit of an inspiration, is the first Jak and Daxter game. The reason why I chose that is because I think, and I specify the first one because, like, the second and from the second game onwards, these games are completely different. Like, the feel and everything about them is completely different, and I really, really prefer the first one a hell of a lot better than the second one was. I like those ones, but I prefer the first one. The thing that I want to take from that is just the kind of adventure and exploration from those games, like, and as well as that is the kind of seamlessness to the environments. In Jak and Daxter, there was very special attention paid to making the world feel like one long world. There were no loading screens in that game, which makes it really great because you can run through the entire game and all the levels with not a single loading screen. There's hidden loading screens, but you don't notice those, like you don't know they're there until you know they're there. But yeah, it just seems completely seamless, and what I absolutely adore about that game is that you can stand at, like, the highest point at the very beginning of the game, and you can look out and see the future levels that you've not been to yet. You can see them in the distance. And I just think that's amazing. Like, it just makes it feel so much more alive, and just great that you're gonna explore all of this and you can see it coming, and, like, every change you make to the environment sticks. Like you, for example, I'm thinking of, there's a point in the game where there's this kind of giant blimp balloon thing, and again, if you're at the beginning of the game, you can see it in the distance, kind of just hanging around. But when you get to that level, you have to cut all of the ropes that's attached to the blimp so that it gets loose and goes flying, and that is an effect is an effect that's seen from everywhere. You know, you can go back to the beginning of the level and look out again and that balloon's not there anymore because it's gone. It's in the sky. I think you can even look up and see it floating around in the sky. It's just amazing that, you know, the effects of the environment are felt from everywhere. Yeah, I just love it. So, and again, just that just kind of encourages you to explore and experience the world, and makes the world feel really alive. And I really want that feeling in my game. I want to feel like the world is seamless, like there's just so much places to go and to run around, and I don't want it to be like a big open boring space that's just linear, that you just go forward and there's nothing going on. I want it to feel alive. I want you to be able to see places in the distance. I want it to be like that. But I think what's quite important as well to think about that is that, like, especially the games I've chosen so far, and the third one as well, is that these are my childhood games. These are not new games. These are very, very old games. You know, PS1 and PS2 games. For me, those were like the best eras. I mean, actually, the era we got now isn't too bad. That's pretty good. But you know, those ones really left a lasting impact on me. But to me, I think that nowadays, the limitations of older games kind of help them make them really good. And at the moment, I feel like we're struggling a little bit with balancing out new technology with still keeping the game actually enjoyable. Like, again, limitations for these old games to me helped make them really good, and without those limitations they wouldn't have been as good. And again, I'll take Jak and Daxter again for an example, in that they couldn't make these, like, nowadays you have some games where the worlds are open and they're meant to feel alive, but at the same time they're just kind of open and empty. There are a lot of games, I think, that we can think of that, you know, again, are open worlds, but they're just empty, like there's nothing in them, and it's not really all that interesting. Like, oh, I get to run around and see nothing, really. So it's like, what's the point? But one of the reason why I think Jak and Daxter was quite good is that the limitations of it being on a PS2 game meant that they had to balance out making it open world, but also having the limitation of how big they could make these levels. These levels couldn't be massive and open, you know, the software wouldn't allow for it. So each kind of level isn't that big, but you don't really feel like it's small. It's really good balance of kind of having kind of nooks and crannies here and places to explore and invisible loading screens that you don't realise are there to make the place look bigger, but actually you're in a different section. And that's something I want to incorporate. I want levels that aren't massive, because again, that'll just overly complicate the project and I could just end up again with big spaces with nothing in them. Sorry, I've been interrupted mid-recording, so I've lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was talking about earlier, so I know something about Jak and Daxter, so I'm just gonna try and wrap up that segment. Basically, from Jak and Daxter, in summary, the parts that I want to take from it is having levels that are not that are open world and where exploration is encouraged, but where the levels aren't so massive that there's nothing in them. I want them to be kind of small to mid-sized, but not feel small. I want them to be kind of concise in a way where you're exploring, you actually feel like you're discovering things and finding things, but not so that they're open and like feel like they don't have anything in them. I'd like them to be as seamless as possible. I'd also like to kind of do the Jak and Daxter thing where there aren't kind of overt loading screens if I could. Have to try and figure that one out though, because that could be a little bit complicated, but we'll see. And yeah, so exploration is encouraged, as well as, actually that's one thing I didn't mention earlier, is that Jak and Daxter, the first game especially, has a very good way of kind of having world building and lore in the background that isn't really necessarily directly spoken upon. So the game opens with the sage talking about, you know, the precursors, and, you know, there's this we're set in this world where there was this great ancient civilization that left all of this advanced technology behind, but we don't know where they went, and, you know, why did they make all this stuff and all this, but that's not the focus of this game in particular. But as you're going through the levels, you can see all of this stuff, these temples and this technology that was left behind, and it really tells you a lot about these places without it strictly saying anything about it. And I love to incorporate that sort of idea of having this kind of mystery going on in the background, but that's not directly spoken about, but it's kind of everywhere you see it, and kind of hidden clues that are right in front of you that kind of don't make sense until later on. Some things from Pokemon I also want to take, so, and that is the kind of idea of different creatures having differences in battle. So, you know, you choose a Pokemon based on, you know, maybe you choose them because you like them because they're cute, or maybe you choose them because of the way they feel in battle, and that each different kind of Pokemon has a different way of battling. That is something I'd like to incorporate with the whole races idea, you know. I mean, it's also kind of linked to the Final Fantasy job system, in that, you know, different jobs are handled in different ways, but the differences I want is that, you know, in the job system and in some of the kind of later Final Fantasies, you have it where, although the characters are different as characters, in battle you can make them all kind of the same. You know, maybe they start out different, but then they don't really, may not continue to be different. So actually, I guess the older games kind of started that, you know, and you can have, like, in 3 you have different job systems and you can switch each character to whatever job you want, so none of the individual characters have specific jobs. You can just make them whatever they want. They can all be the same thing if you want them to be. I'd like to avoid that. That's why I want it to be more like Pokemon and not like Final Fantasy, where, you know, each different creature has associated abilities and a way of battling associated with their species. But as well as that, another thing that Pokemon incorporates is that although you have, you know, the same kind of Pokemon and they all learn the same, you know, moves and evolve at the same time, you know, a species of Pokemon all have the same kind of things, they're also different in that, you know, they have IVs and EVs, so even if you have the same Pokemon as someone else, it's not going to be the same in battle because it'll have certain little stat details that make them different, so one will be better than the other, or will be better in a particular stat than the other. So I kind of want that as well, where even if they are the same kind of species, they're not the same in battle, so that there are also nuances to how you handle them, and so each individual character is also handled completely differently during the battle system. So those are the themes of the game. What I've done at the moment is that I've already decided upon kind of the way I've kind of got a general kind of storyline and general line of events and general characters that I want for the entire game, but to actually be able to focus on getting a physical, at least a tiny demo if you want, of the physical thing working, where because I already know how I kind of want the mechanics and everything to work, but if I focus on making the entire storyline of the game, I'm not going to come back to that for ages. So what I'm doing is that I've got the kind of general mechanics sorted out. I know what my starting characters are going to be, so I'm going to focus on creating the first level if you want, and the first characters that are in that level, and get a demo out of that, of the very first bit of the game, so I can kind of show off in general what it is going to be like and feel like, and get something physical out there. That's not going to be for a long time though, because at the moment I've got my first, it's going to be first 2 characters already planned out. I'm trying to do some 3D modelling at the moment because I would like it to be 3D. I don't want it to be too overly complicated, and I don't have the technology to make this look like an amazing, you know, 4K super high definition. I don't have the computer powerful enough for that either. So I'm just kind of going for, again, we're sticking for kind of PS2 kind of looking at the moment, where I don't want it to look terrible, but it's not gonna look like the most high definition thing at the moment. So I'm kind of drawing my first characters, and then I'm gonna 3D model them, test a 3D model on them, test some rigging, and then we'll see where it goes from there. So yeah, at this current stage, I've drawn some profiles for the first character I'm gonna do. Then I'm going to get onto 3D modelling him. So that we'll see. I'll be talking about the progress that I've gotten to when that is done. And I'll explain to you my first character that I'm going to be doing. So that'll be the next video, the next log that comes in. It'll be about my first character. Hopefully that all goes well. See you later. Bye.